I don't believe in God,
but I believe in music.
It's got the power,
and I'm gonna use it.
I believe in evolution,
and the world needs solutions.
I'm gonna sing a song of reason.
We need a revolution.
Right now, don't hesitate. We gotta try to change the weather before it's too late.
All right, here we are. Hello, everybody. Hello, people in the chat. It looks like we've got 12 comments, so there seems to be a few people hanging around. Maybe it's just all us. Anyway, hello to everyone. The plan is for the channel really from here on in is to start to do regular interviews. So hopefully every couple of weeks. And we're starting off with our friend and fellow utopian Godless Granny today. And we're going to consistently, bring other people on. I think I've got Aaron Lewis in a couple of weeks. So starting with people that we know and that are friends of the channel. And then we'll move on. We're going to ask some other people as well. But today we have Godless Granny. So,
Hello.
Hi, Gigi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's lovely.
Even though I would have been here even if I wasn't the guest.
That's right. Look, I thought it was a good place to start because I'm thinking, well, Gigi, like, she's there and she's got a successful channel. Like, you are someone that's actually, to me, a bit of a celebrity. And I know that you haven't reached the 100,000 yet or anything, but I feel as though once you get to that 10,000, that things escalate pretty quickly. I've seen it happen before. We were talking backstage about Jimmy Snow's channel, Mr. Atheist.
I am already starting to feel it because when I went to the American Atheist Conference in Philadelphia, I saw Owen Morgan, Telltale, sitting there, and I went up to introduce myself, and he said, "Yeah, I know who you are." And I was flabbergasted that he knew who I was. And then the other was Mr. Deity. You know, I had watched a few of his things, but not a whole lot. And someone told me about his video on excusages, so I watched it, and I was in it.
Wow.
So he had clips of a bunch of different, and I thought, wow, Mr. Deity knows who I am too. There's people who know who I am, and that's flattering.
That must feel very incredible. I mean,
it does. It feels absolutely wonderful. It feels like I'm actually accomplishing something.
And that would bring us to the first question. When you
by the way, sorry, I didn't introduce Claire as well. So Claire is going to probably do most of the talking here. But we're both going to ask questions. Sorry, Claire, off you go.
No, that's okay, because that was such a great lead into the first question as to why you wanted to be out here. What was it that inspired you, brought you out here, the goal for your YouTube channel from the start?
There were two things that inspired me to do this. One was the desire to fix past mistakes. I was so gung-ho for Christianity. You know, I was out there doing mission trips and doing ladies' Bible studies and trying to teach anyone who would listen, you know, who God is and why they needed my God. And now I'm face palming and saying, how could I have been so blind? How could I have been so stupid? I need to go back to all these people and tell them how wrong I was. And most of these people I can't reach directly, but at least with YouTube, I can try to reach them indirectly, or I can reach their children and tell them, don't do what I did.
So it was more like you got more information, you changed your opinion, and now you want to inform. You want to say, like,
right.
Is part of that discussion like how you got there when you tried to?
Yes, definitely. And one other thing that was very influential was Shannon Q. When I first started watching atheist content, Shannon Q said, we have so few women atheists that are content creators. There's plenty of atheist women out there, but very few of them are content creators. So I said, hey, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, you kind of find that a little bit across the board out here in commentary in general, not just in the atheist community, but in most of our small communities, it gets it that way. But I'm glad she encouraged you, because I know when I first came out, your channel was a great inspiration to me for reasonable thoughtfulness. I mean, I can't compliment you enough, but that's not. I'm just going to ask questions though, rather than trying to get you to blush for the rest.
Well,
So
that's actually a good point to bring in. A question that I had was
Mhm.
and it's jumping a little bit ahead, but it's kind of relevant because what we were just
Mhm.
talking about is that I've noticed in comments on your channel, people saying that they appreciate hearing these opinions and ideas and progressive ideas coming from like an older person.
Hmm.
And do you think that because you are a little bit older and you're putting out progressive ideas and talking about religion in the way that you do, that maybe people respond to that a bit better than what they might do if it's a younger person because they respect the older
Yeah, to a
person?
certain extent, yes, I agree. There's a few people that, are just assholes,
Yeah.
and tell me to get on my rocking chair and go sit in a nursing home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the internet, so you're always going to get that. You're going to get trolls.
Right,
It's going to happen
right,
to everybody. So yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I also, my favorite things are people who write to me and say, my parents are not accepting of me, or I wish my mom or my grandma was like you. And um, my son showed me a shirt which I went and immediately bought for myself. I don't have it on today, but it has one bear with a trans flag, and one bear with a pride flag, and one bear with a non-binary flag, or I forget which all flags it has. And there's this snarling big black bear that says, "If your parents aren't accepting, I'm your mother now."
Wow, that's lovely.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
yeah.
great.
That brings
That's
me
good.
to the first question back again. You said there were two reasons. One was to correct misinformation you thought you yourself had done in encouraging people religious wise. What was the other part?
Well, I already gave you the other one. The other
Oh,
one
I'm
was
sorry.
because of the influence of Shannon Q.
Oh, just for because you're a woman. Oh,
Right.
okay. Okay, there you go. So what would you say? How do you pick your topics? That's what I want to know. Like, because
That's a
you've
really
got
good
such a
question.
broad spectrum of. I've never not been completely enthralled with the conversations. Okay,
Oh, thank you so much.
and
My
in this
current
day and
video is
age, that's
absolutely
tough.
flopping.
Is it? Oh
Yeah,
no.
it's only got about 300 views, which I normally have about 1,000 by this time of the day.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you can share that one out, that would be appreciated.
I'm definitely gonna go grab it. I'm definitely gonna go grab it, and that is probably on my watch list because I don't often make the chats. But tell me, how do you actually pick the topics? Is it
Okay, there's several ways. Sometimes viewers suggest something to me. Lone Wanderer's Bunker has pointed me to a few things, and Jur has pointed me to a few things. Um, there's a site on Twitter, Atheist. I don't think it's Atheist. It's not Atheist Republic. It's I can't remember what it is, but sometimes they will find something really interesting and they'll tweet and they'll tag me and a few other content creators that look for stuff and suggest it. The two that I did on Bloody, Brutal, and Barbaric, they
Mhm.
suggested both of those. Another thing is if you go to YouTube Studio and you hit I think it's analysis.
Mhm.
I'm going to open it on my computer so I can remember exactly where it is. Yeah, you go to analytics, and then across the top it says overview, content, audience, revenue, inspiration. Click on inspiration and scroll down, and there'll be a few videos suggested that are on the topic of what you normally make content about. And I've gotten a number of pieces off of that. So YouTube even makes suggestions to me.
Oh, okay.
So because of the algorithm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that type of situation, because it knows what you've done in the past, so it's going to suggest things along those lines.
Yeah. Another thing that I do is sometimes I will think about, what topic would I like to talk about? If when it's getting close to Easter, I want to talk about the resurrection. So I'll go to YouTube and just search resurrection, and I want to look at something that's been recent. I don't want to comment on something that's 5 years old. So I usually look at what's been done in the last year on the resurrection, and I'll pick something from there. Occasionally, I will pick a particular content creator. Occasionally, I will specifically look for something by Frank Turek, or I know when my channel is starting to lose viewers and lose views, there are certain people that I can respond to that get a lot of views. Sean McDowell, Frank Turek, and Jay Warner Wallace are probably the big three. So if my numbers are down, I'll go look for one of those three to respond to.
Is that like inspiration from those amazing Twitter threads that you get involved in, correcting misinformation and going head to head with these guys?
Occasionally, usually those things only end up being something that I comment on the video. Those don't usually end up being a whole video.
But yeah, you've been in some amazing ones, and I have to say, more often than not, you're coming out on top on all of them. on all of them, yeah.
I have to say, like, with all of those arguments, I've never ever seen a religious response that has ever won an argument. I don't think ever.
Yeah,
and that's with you. And that's with other people, Matt Dillahunty, whoever it happens to be, Aaron Ra, whoever it happens to be. I've never seen a good argument really from a religious position.
In all honesty, Granny is the triple threat, because she's well educated and well informed on the religious aspect of it. It's very hard to argue a point with somebody who already was there, knows everything you're going to say and where you're coming from with it, done the research, turned out to have the other opinion. Now, how are you going to go against that without actually coming with facts and actually a real solid argument, which they normally do not? Plus, she's so reasonable, and then she twists it with that humor, and it's just like they're just owned. Boom. It's like nothing. It's just there's nothing they can do.
It's a great mix, isn't it? It is a great mix, and obviously that's why your channel is so successful. And I mean, the whole persona, the whole Granny thing, I think works really well. I can't think of anybody else who's out there that kind of comes from your position offhand. So I think, maybe for want of a better word, it's a strong brand that you have. So the fact that you're doing so well doesn't really surprise me, I have to say.
No, it's like your perfect honesty of who you are, which makes me want to talk about more who that is. Like, tell me, which was your best interview on your channel or conversation so far? Because you've had quite a few, and I don't know if you're ready for that question, but
let's see. I looked over the questions a little bit, and I was thinking about what was the worst.
Would you want to start with that one?
Yeah, let's start with that one. There's two that really come to mind. One is the one I did with Mary Byerly, the Amish woman. I was just really taken aback by how aggressive she was with me, because I thought this was going to be a friendly interview, and we were both coming from the same perspective, and yet she got very aggressive with me, and I was very uncomfortable with the interview. And she spoke at the American Atheist Conference, and I didn't even want to go to her talk because I really didn't want anything to do with her.
And this one was on your channel, right? The conversation with her. And so you're coming from the same perspective, and she made you feel that uncomfortable. That kind of leads to another question. Like, what do you do on your channel to make sure the guest is comfortable with the topic and feels good relating their opinion with you? Do you have any special techniques, because they're so free?
I would say that this is something I'm still in the process of learning. One thing I think I've made the mistake early in the show of being a bit too aggressive myself with theist guests and scared people off from wanting to be on the show. It is difficult to get a theist to come on the show. But I have learned from that, and I am learning how to be a bit more gentle. I've also watched Alex O'Connor, and that young man has no temper whatsoever. You know, he's cool, calm, and collected regardless of what his guest says. And I'm learning from that if I want to have a guest on that has an opposing view, I need to respectfully listen to that opposing view. One example of this, I had a guest on that was anti-transgender, and I asked Jenny Morgan to do that show with me, and I was flabbergasted at how composed Jenny was when this woman was saying such ridiculous things about transgender people.
I watched that video.
Yeah.
As soon as the video was over and the guest was gone, Jenny let loose.
Loaded.
And I was like, okay, that's the Jenny I know and love. But
Yeah.
she was very polite and very cordial with the guest. But as soon as the guest was gone, then she let loose with what
Absolutely,
she
because
felt.
it's so frustrating. You're standing in the face of ignorance, and it's blurting all this stuff out. And a lot of the time, these people just blast you with words, and it's just a jumbled mess, and it's hard to respond to things like that. That's why I wouldn't be good in a debate or anything. Firstly, I wouldn't have the information because I'm not smart like Gigi, and secondly, I just couldn't respond to that barrage because they'll say 5 things in one sentence that you think, geez, that's wrong. Oh, that I can have a go at that. And
Yeah,
it's so
you got to pick your battles.
place of ignorance. You know, it really does so often.
Another interview that I really blew was the one I had with T-Jump. I did not do enough research before that interview of what he was all about and listening to his content. And I didn't really know what questions to ask. I had told him one question that I had planned to ask. And then when I got into the interview, I got a bit flummoxed and I forgot that that's where I had told him we were going to focus the interview. And I forgot to ask him that question at all. And the interview was boring. And when I got to the end, I thought, you know, this is boring. And since then I've watched him and he's a brilliant young man. And I just totally missed what he was all about. I asked all the wrong questions.
You're thinking about bringing him back for another?
I would love to bring him back sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully he will, and you'll get another shot at it, because growing, you learn so much, right? Every interview, you take something away.
Well, this is the interesting thing about doing this as well, is because if you're interviewing people, then you're finding out information about them. So I'm kind of excited about exploring a bit more about people's backgrounds that we get on the channel in the future. I mean, Gigi's been around for a while. We've been friends for quite a while, so I kind of know a fair bit anyway, as we all do. So it's a little bit easier, but yeah, it's interesting to be able to explore and find a little bit more out about people's backgrounds that we'll have on. So,
well, if you didn't think of your best interview yet, or the one you think is the best, like not the best performing, just the one that, like, you always go to say, yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to do. That was perfect. Yeah.
I would have to say the first one with Dr. Jennifer Bird.
Oh, yeah.
She's good. I've watched a couple of those.
She is. And she's one of the few people that I reached out to that I had no connection to with whatsoever. I just saw her and I wanted her. And I knew she had a new book out. And so I was hoping maybe she'd be willing to come on a channel as small as mine and promote it. And she was. And I was thrilled that she was able to come.
Well, now here's one that wasn't on the list, but it goes perfect with this. So who's your dream interview? Who you got your eyes on? You're going to get this one back.
Hands down. Rationality Rules. Stephen Woodford.
Okay.
I have asked Stephen Woodford so many times, and the few times that I've gotten through to him, he has said yes every time. Let me check my calendar, and then I never hear back from him.
Yeah, right.
Gosh.
And so, yeah, if I ever am on my deathbed and I get a dying wish, it's going to
Uh-huh.
be able to meet Stephen Woodford.
I think that's a common thing that they do. I have a psychologist I've been dancing around with that for 3 years, and they keep saying, yes, yes, check my calendar. I'll be right back to you. Yeah, months go by. You know?
Mhm.
But I hope you get it. I think you will. I think you will. I think you will. I'm
Just
going to be pulling for that
persistence, Gigi, and
one.
plus the fact your channel's growing bigger all the time. So
Mhm.
people like that who may prioritize other things before you down the track will start to think, hey, maybe I should go on and have a chat here. And the fact that you've communicated with him and he's going to be aware of you, you would imagine, you keep doing it, he's eventually going to say, okay, let's do this. I think at this point, because Gigi and I have done a few little creative little things together, so I'm just going to play scattered bits that we've done. I got 5 things to play. They don't go for very long. And the other thing is, if anybody in the chat has any questions for Granny, then bring them up and we'll do that. Try and fit those in throughout this stream as well. So here we'll play. Here's the first one that I think this is actually the first one we did together, but let's give this a look.
Jesus, drama of the children, all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white, they were evil in his sight. So Jesus drowned the little children of the world.
So that was our first little effort. And can I just say that people in the community contributed to that. I can't remember exactly whose voices were on there. Angie Dell's in the chat. Were you on there or not? I know you've done some things and haven't been involved in others. I think that was one you might have done. But that was one of the really good ones where we got the community in and we got people. Yeah. So Angie did do that. So we had some really good voices in there, Angie being one. We had Madam Who in there. She did a very high operatic voice, which sounded great. Blatant Blatheist was in there, put his voice. And just that whole collection of different people, singers and non-singers. That was a really good result. That sounded like a church choir to me. So that one was really effective.
It did. It was. It worked really well with the topic. It really was. Yeah.
I've used that piece of artwork that's at the end of that a number of times. I've kept that piece of artwork.
It's a great piece of art, isn't it? That's one thing, I suppose, because actually one of the questions I have a bit later on, but we might as well bring it in while it's relevant. Do you think that anything good has come from religion? And I guess if you were going to say something, maybe it's artwork like that.
Art and music. Yes.
Yeah.
Art and music. And beautiful architecture.
Yeah. Do you think if religion wasn't there, we would still have beautiful architecture and art and music, but the focus would be somewhere else because the talent comes from the artists and it's not coming from some spirit or whatever through the artist. We know as skeptics that it comes from the artist. So the focus may have been, and I think Richard Dawkins has said something as much as this, may have been on things like science, the universe, and just looking at.
I don't think that. I do think, artists, painters would still have painted, sculptors, and I don't think they would have been focused on science things. I think they would have just been focused more on nature and
beauty.
Yeah. Yes, sure. Yeah. I guess that's what I mean when I'm going to say.
Okay.
Because basically art is a motive, right? Like it is actually the expression of something you feel, regardless, no matter what it is. It's
the expression of emotion and the expression of nature, I'd say more so than anything else. And if you have a belief in something like a God, then it's going to be an expression of that.
Well, that brings us to another good question for Granny. Because like Art said, your channel focus is mostly on religion, right? But
Mhm.
Do you think that religion largely or exists because of a fear of death or the unknown, or maybe also a fear of like
I
natural
think it
phenomena?
originated as a way to explain the unexplainable.
Ah,
I think, early people, where does thunder come from? Where does rain come from? Why does it rain some days and not other days?
mm-hmm.
It's the gods, and I think the gods were made up to explain whatever whatever questions parents couldn't answer for their kids.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can actually see that. It's kind of like, oh, when I look at it, I think of the balance of the it. Like we don't want to be all of that. Like we need something more in control of ourselves. We don't want to think we're the final answer to anything. It's so like the creation of all the gods and the myths and everything that are actually using us as puppets was in some weird way comforting. I don't know, but I
And
like
then
your idea. Yeah, I
yeah,
like your idea.
and then I think what came next was certain people realizing that they could use this for power, by
Hmm.
claiming to have some kind of access to the gods. I know what makes the gods happy, and so, ask me, and oh, you need to sacrifice a bushel of wheat, and then it will rain, and when they give the priest the wheat, and then it rains. See, I'm in tune with the gods. You need to take
Yeah.
care of me so I can pray to the
Yeah,
Mm.
gods for you.
yeah,
And if
because
it
I'm
random
on
if
the
it
line.
randomly
Yeah.
if it randomly works out good, then they attribute that to the gods rather than
Mhm.
just
Exactly.
it's randomly happened to be
Uh,
that way.
I'm your connection to the to the being in charge. Like I can get
Mhm.
you. Mhm. Wow.
Yeah.
It is. It is. Unfortunately, too popular out there. The good thing in some smaller countries, that's really with religion. That's all they do is to collect the money. It's like a church
Mhm.
for everything. Mhm. Incredible.
Now we didn't ask this question, but we were talking about this before. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we've covered this because we're actually getting through these questions pretty quick, which is good. We had a few, and I didn't think we would get through them, but we're going pretty good here. Now, a question I was interested in. My inspiration comes from a few different people personally, but if I was to pick one, I would say Carl Sagan, and I would say one particular book, The Demon Haunted World, is the thing that most affected me and changed my life and my attitude towards everything. It was a catalyst, I guess, for a lot of change in my life. Who inspired you, Gigi? Who were your mentors, or which one or two people do you see as the people that inspired you and maybe changed your way of thinking?
Actually, I have a long list. This is the question that I was thinking was going to take a bit of time,
Okay.
because there have been a lot of different people that have changed my mind on different topics. Probably the very first one that changed a religious position for me actually wasn't a person; it was the Shed Aquarium. I was a young Earth creationist, and one of the things the young Earth creationists had taught me was that fish cannot grow lungs and crawl out of the water and evolve. And when I went to the Shed Aquarium and I saw lungfish, I said, well, I don't know why they call these lungfish. They obviously can't have lungs. So I read the plaque. They really do have lungs. There
Wait.
really is such a thing as a lungfish. A fish
Hmm.
can grow lungs. The young Earth creationists are wrong. So at that point, I abandoned young Earth creationism, but I went to a church at that time that was about half and half on young Earth creationism. And so I just basically moved from one camp to the other, and it was no big deal for my faith. I still had the same faith. It just changed, what I believed about creationism, but that affected my theology a bit, and I did not look at how much it affected my theology because I never really explored what that, not believing in young earth creationism does to the whole theory of, Adam and Eve. Where did Adam and Eve come from if humans evolved? You know,
Hmm.
I And this is why I was in the religion for so long, is I had very compartmentalized thinking. And
Mhm.
so the evolution box, the box that held all of my knowledge about human evolution, and the religion box were completely two separate boxes, and I never put the two of them together.
Right.
And that also, comes into play much later when I eventually um, lost my faith. Was okay, but before we get that, a couple other things that were very influential along the way. Two books.
Mhm.
I was very much in the camp of, if you are gay, you are going to hell. And the first book that changed my mind on that was Christopher Yuong's book. And I almost am embarrassed to bring this up, because Christopher Yuong is now doing a ministry to basically say that you can stop being gay if you want to.
Oh.
Which goes completely contrary to the book that he wrote. But the book that he wrote was called Out of a Far Country, and it came out in about 2011. I was the church librarian at our church at the time, and every year I went to the church librarians conference in Wheaton, Illinois. Christopher Yuan was a professor at Moody Bible Institute, which is also a suburb of Chicago. Wheaton is a suburb of
Mhm.
Chicago as well. And so he came to the librarians conference to promote his book. And he and his mother were sitting alone at lunch, and I went and joined them, and they told me a little bit about their story. And so I bought his book for our library, and I read it. And it had a profound influence on me, because after reading that book, I realized that being gay was not a choice. Christopher made it very clear that if he could choose not to be gay, that he would do that. And so that was a step of progress, even though a very small one. But the next one was very influential on me. And that was a book that I just picked up out of the library. I just looked at the title and thought it looked interesting. It was called Mama's Boy, Preacher's Son. And it is written by, oh goodness, I pulled this website up, and now the name of the author is so tiny I can't even see it. There it is, Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings is the founder of GLSEN, which is the Gay Straight Alliance, and he's been trying to get gay straight alliances in school. And I read his book, and after reading his book, I said, a gay person can be a Christian. He's very clearly a gay man living in a gay relationship, but he also is very dedicated to as a believer in Christ. And so that had an impact on my thinking. And then the next person I would say is Jordan Klepper. Jordan Klepper used to have a show called The Opposition, and Robin absolutely loved that show. And we would watch it together. And that really shaped a lot of my views on social justice. And I started watching a few other comedians at that time, John Oliver, a little bit of Jimmy Kimmel, a little bit of, what's his name? I can't remember. Some of the late night comedians. And they
There's quite a
started,
few. There was like Jon Stewart. Like they were all like
Jon
pretty
Stewart, I
outspoken.
don't care for.
He's too rude lately.
Yeah, I have never cared for Jon Stewart.
Mhm.
But a number of these comedians had a great deal of influence on my social impact perspectives. And then when I became an atheist, then I started picking up mentors like crazy, because as a believer, I would not read anything that wasn't written by a believer, because I felt like, okay, knowing God is the beginning of knowledge. It's the foundation of everything. So if you don't know God, you don't even begin to know what you're talking about. And so there was huge gaps in my knowledge, especially when it comes to science. So a couple of people, Jenny Morgan and Polymathic Jen, were my mentors when it came to the transgender community. They taught me what it means to be transgender, what the transgender community faces, what issues are impacting them, and how to be an ally for them. Those are my mentors in that respect. Matt Dillahunty has been a huge mentor for me. I got so lucky. Just weeks after I lost my faith, Robin asked my husband and I to take him to Dragon Con. Robin was a freshman in college at the time, and I wasn't really interested in Dragon Con, and Robin knew that. And so Robin went through the list of speakers, specifically looking for things that he thought I might be interested in. And as a new atheist, the atheist experience was live at Dragon Con. So Robin and I went there.
Cool.
And I am always early to everything. So we were up near the front. And when they asked if people had any questions, I got up and asked a question. I was the second one in line. So I met Matt Dillahunty in person.
Wow.
He even remembers this interview because I prefaced my comments with, "I've been an atheist for a couple of weeks now." And that means you've been an atheist for a couple of weeks?
A whole 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, it's only been a few
Hey, you
weeks.
got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, when I started watching some atheist content, a lot of it was going completely over my head because I just didn't have the science background to understand it.
Mhm.
And so Paula Gia was really the first content creator that I really got into because he and I share a great deal of background. And, we both came from a Mennonite background. We both have very similar experiences, and I could really relate to him. And he spoke on a level that I could understand.
Mhm.
And Vice Rhino was second. Aaron Ra, I was trying to listen to because he was very influential in my deconversion. But when I was listening to his phylogeny series, I couldn't even understand it because I didn't have the vocabulary.
Mhm.
But
Most
once,
people don't, in all fairness, his knowledge is extreme when it comes to like evolution and stuff like that, but he has studied it. So you're not going to understand everything he's talking about. He takes it next level. But sorry, anyway.
But Vice Rhino takes what Aaron Ra says and brings it down to my level.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
And so
Exactly.
after listening to Vice Rhino for a few months, then I could understand Aaron Ra. And of course, Gutsick Gibbon has taught me so much about human evolution. Forrest Valkai, that man is a genius. Oh, and John Perry stated clearly. I absolutely love his videos. Whenever I'm in an argument with a creationist that just doesn't get it, John Perry's videos explain things at a level that anyone can understand. So those have all been very influential on me.
Right. Well, you got quite a few there, Gigi, which is very interesting. Now, I want to get, because Mark Caesar has asked a couple of questions, and I have asked people to ask questions. So I want to try and get onto them and not ignore them.
Yeah.
His most recent one. Sorry, Claire, what were you going to say?
I was going to say we've got two good ones in there.
From Mark. Did you want to ask?
Well, his first one was, what would be a video you would love to make if you had enough time and the resources to do so? In other words, like no limit. Like, what's the video you want to do?
That's a good question. I think I would want to make another video for my grandkids. I haven't done that for a while, and I probably should do another one. They're not allowed to watch my content, even the ones that I've made for children. But I'd love to leave it out there as a legacy for when they're old enough that their mom finally either their mom will finally relent and let them watch them, or they may find the stuff on their own.
I'm sure they'll get there eventually.
I'm sure they will.
You want to leave it there? Like, I want to expand on that a little bit. I find this fascinating. Do you want to leave it there as a testament to what you're trying to explain to them, like you would anyone from religion, and just your point of view, and like trying to just, but not like in a You got to do
Not
it
like
this
a
way.
preachy, this is what you have to
Right.
believe, but, you know, yeah,
But
this is where I'm coming from, and this is why I don't believe.
like another side of the coin thing. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
get where you're coming from, but let's just consider this kind of, that's a beautiful sentiment for them. And I encourage you to do that with or without the resources.
I wouldn't need a whole lot of resources to do that.
No, because isn't that like what you said about the premise of your channel, to
Mhm.
actually get the information out there of why you did the turn and what it meant to you, and here's the information, you know, in a
One of the
respectful way.
hardest one
Yeah.
of the hardest things to do is balancing what I want to do and what viewers want to see.
Mm,
Because if I do only what I want to do, the numbers go down,
mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
then I don't have an audience. So I have
right.
to do a decent amount of content of what people want to see
Mm.
to
Mm-hmm.
keep the numbers up.
And be
That is
true to yourself at the same time. So you got to
that's
be
the
true to
YouTube
what you want.
paradox. It's the
Yeah.
paradox, yes, because like, you know, you know, I'm a little different than you. The very successful channel with what your message that you want out there, and I'm so happy that people are listening to it. It's what you want to accomplish. You're making great strides doing it. It's got to feel fantastic.
It's authentic what you do, Gigi.
Yeah,
So
right, because it's coming from an honest place, like an
yeah,
honest. This is you, and this
yeah.
is
And
what
too many
your
people
message.
don't do that. Too many people just go where the audience is and
Mhm.
will focus on things that they think their audience wants to hear rather than what they believe in or stand
Mhm.
for.
But
So
I
it
get the
loses all that
struggle, but yeah,
authenticity.
I get the struggle daily, right? Because you're looking to
Yeah.
see what's popular, whether you want to tackle it. There's so much going on.
Mhm.
There's so
Mhm.
much going on right now. I almost hate to
Wow.
bring this other
Tell me
question up because it might just be like too much. But hey, might as well be me, right, Art? Because I'm always too much. So,
Yeah.
so
Well,
let's
I can't argue with that, actually,
well,
Claire.
I don't expect anybody to. The one thing I know is I know myself. I know damn well I'm too much. But anyway, ignoring the fact that the character type of a world leader seems to revolve largely around being career driven and often narcissistic. Hypothetically, who do you think would make better world leaders than the ones we currently have? Pick a country, any country, pick them all, pick the world. This that's a
Oh.
humdinger. Just for the record, people, I didn't write that question. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even know who it is, but I'd have to say whoever's ruling Iceland,
Oh, yeah.
because
Okay.
Iceland is doing really well.
yeah. Some of those, what do we call them? Nordic countries, or
Yeah. Well,
there's
now that
another word.
now that I want to ask, on what thermometer or what registration are you saying very well? Like, what are you using as your factors here?
Um, how happy the people are,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
quality of life,
Mm-hmm.
um, equality among the
Mm-hmm.
sexes, among, you know, just people are better at viewing each other as equals. The tone is so much different there. You know, they don't have this polarizing rhetoric like we do here. They don't have the gun violence that we do.
Oh,
No religion
yeah.
is, or very much less
Yes,
Right.
religion.
they're very secular. They're very
Yeah,
secular.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
And
doesn't seem to play into anything. Like if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. But it's not an issue there at all.
mhm,
I think it's
Well, that
the respect too. When you said the client, the temperament, I think is what like is
mhm.
very respectful, like well mannered, like tolerance. I think it is what kind of overlaps all of that. You know, for
definitely,
equality.
definitely acceptance. That word tolerance is not a favorite word of mine because it
Yeah.
insinuates that
That you,
you're only tolerating gay
true, true. There's
minorities
yeah,
rather than
a better
accepting
word.
that you are who
Yeah,
you are. Yeah,
yeah.
Empathy.
yeah,
Empathy and
and
acceptance.
empathize
In other
rather
words,
than
you
just,
know,
oh,
it
I'll
is
put
what
up
it is.
with
They
it
don't make a big
if I have
deal.
to. You know?
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no.
No, but I agree
That's
about the word. Like, I'm gonna
yeah,
have to
yeah,
think about that because I agree about the word. It
yeah.
absolutely does mean that. in so that would not have been, you know, what I would want to put
I
out
think
there
it's,
that
I
way.
think it's used with good intentions, but to me, it comes across that way. That's how I perceive it. Is that if you say tolerate, it's just kind of like, if you tolerate something, you don't like it, but you put up with it,
Mm-hmm.
pain
Mm-hmm.
or whatever that happens to be. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's not a good word. I think
Yeah.
acceptance is clearly the
Acceptance is a
better.
much better way, and it actually portrays what's going over there nicely and better to the acceptance. Which brings us to a question from Mark, another one. Thank you, Mark. What do you think the best way to approach believers is to get them to see reason and accept reality?
I don't think there's any one thing. And I think that is the key, is getting to know the person first and trying to find what it is that is holding this person back. And this is something I addressed in the video that I just released earlier today. Was there was a man that was arguing with me on the Atheist and Christian Book Club that, you know, God's already given you convincing evidence. Why does it have to be convincing to you personally? And the answer is because that's what convincing means. Convincing is in the eye of the beholder. And one of the things I said in the video is, if I went and presented a case in court and lost, and then went and complained to the judge that, hey, this evidence was convincing to my office staff, so I presented convincing evidence, it's not fair for them to find against me, I'd be laughed out of the courtroom. You know, my job is to convince that particular person, and I think that's what you have to do with each believer, is get to know them well enough to know what it is that's preventing them from seeing truth. What are the areas that they're not seeing? And especially if you can tap into things that they already know don't fit with their religion, just as I
Mhm.
didn't put it together. And here's what I mean. For me, the straw that broke the camel's back was Noah's flood. And I have always known enough about ancient Chinese history from my studies in high school and college that I knew that there were a number of dynasties that, their civilization goes back thousands, 10,000 years. There's always been continuous civilization there. And I never thought about the fact that that knowledge conflicted with my belief that there was a global flood. And once I heard Aaron Ross, as we know there was no global flood, and we know this because of biology, geology, history. And when he said the word history, suddenly the link was made between what I knew about the Bible and what I knew about history. And I suddenly realized that these two things were completely incompatible. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to find an area that this believer knows and something that they believe that are completely incompatible.
Well, I think that's it right there. Like, you have to find something they can relate to and
Mhm.
understand, and just innately understand. Like, it's just there. Also, that they're open. Like, I find many, I don't know, do you find many willing to be open and have the discussion with you? Oh,
No. Sometimes I go on Twitter and we'll start arguing with people just to try to get a theist to come on my show. But most people that I argue with on Twitter have no interest in coming onto the show. So I've started looking in other places for guests to come on the show. The Atheist and Christian Book Club has been a good place because the people that are there are very willing to have discussions, from both sides, and both sides are very cordial. And so
mhm,
I've been asking. I've got a lot of guests lined up that are from that book club, which William Cluck turned me on to.
mhm.
Um, trying to find people that are willing to have a conversation is difficult, and I find that amusing because um, Ray Comfort is constantly posting and saying in his videos, you've got to go out and have conversations with unbelievers.
And you
And
won't. Yeah.
yeah, I'll come
Yeah.
onto his Twitter feeds, and when he'll say that, I'll say, "Yep, I'm right here."
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, and no response. It's like,
Yep.
it's because they know they don't have anything. Actually, with that conversation that we just had about Noah's flood, it's probably an appropriate time to play something else that we did together. Now, these are all Granny's ideas, by the way, and she approached me about just throwing a bit of music in. So, and this is what we've come up with together. This one concerns Noah's flood, actually, I think. Up and down, the valleys. Sorry, we'll start from the valleys of the earth go up and down, up and down, up and down. The valleys of the earth go up and down. Noah's going to drown.
I just love it. Oh, I just love it. Yeah.
And
I made that one specifically to go with there was a full-length movie on flood geology, and Steve Bowman and I went through the vast majority of that movie together. And there was the geologist, he was really a meteorologist. He even admitted that his real background was meteorology, not geology, was talking about plate tectonics and these mountains go up and the valleys sink down, and that's what causes the floodwaters to. And Steve and I were talking about it, is saying, if all of this earth movement that occurred over millions of years really occurred all in 1 year, like this geologist is claiming, the valleys of the earth would have to be going up and down and up and down.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He was actually really good. I did watch. I don't know that I've seen all of it, but I did watch quite a bit of it. Do you find that when you get people like him on there who are scientists, do they get good views? Those
sometimes. The one with Steve Bowman did not, and that was my fault, because we had 10 hours of raw footage, and I edited it down to 4 hours and aired it in two-hour segments, and they were just too long. People didn't want to listen that long.
Yeah. So unless you're someone with a certain scientific knowledge and interest, you may not sit down and watch that. Look, in all fairness, it can be hard to sit and watch long videos, people trying to find the time to do it. So yeah, it does kind of have to be something that catches your attention and is particularly interesting to you to jump on there.
Yeah. Do you have a technique for that? For actually, you tackle some pretty tough topics in some very involved topics, scientifically, a lot of information, sometimes very educated, a little bit. Do you have a formula for trying to get that relatable to your audience?
Not really. I don't consider myself to have a whole lot of scientific knowledge, so I figure if I can understand it, my audience can too. I do sometimes consult with people, particularly when I'm looking at a technical paper and I can't understand the technical paper. And once they explain it to me, I usually explain it to the audience the same way that the expert explained it to me.
So you approach it with the questions that you want the answers to, like for your understanding of it, and that helps them better understand that. That's a great way, because they relate, because you're so relatable, right? Like you know, and you're just so easygoing about it, and even though you're quite progressive in your opinions, and we know, and you have strong opinions, you're not really harsh about them, unless, of course, we're not talking about Twitter, Granny. Okay, we're not talking about that, Granny. We're talking about the one on YouTube. Is very approachable, even with an opposing opinion, even with a strong opinion, and I think that's doing really well for you. But that brings
friendliness definitely helps, doesn't it? Because people feel as though they can approach people like Gigi. Someone like Matt Dillahunty, who I love and is an intelligent guy, can be a bit scary at times.
I think he's brilliant, but damn, does he piss me off sometimes. But that's where this
around. He's not happy with something you say, he'll let you know about it. So.
Yeah, this thing, that's why what did you call it, the brand or the hook? Like, who could be mad at Granny? Like seriously. I just get mad and gritty. You gotta like take a step back. I myself, I'm like, if I had something to say, I'd be like, no, you don't say that to gritty.
Well,
Like,
actually,
I
I
don't
have
formulate that. Like,
no,
you know,
no.
yeah, no. Anyway,
Sorry, but you were going to lead on to another question.
I was, you know, and there's a long one based on your progressive, progressive thinking, which is a positive thing. And you are absolutely very progressive thinking person and outspoken about LGBTQ plus and very supportive of LGBTQ plus rights. You're also quite open about your left-leaning political position. I applaud you for that. Coming from a more religious conservative background, what would you say mostly inspired your progressive outlook?
It's what I told you earlier. It was first Christopher Yuang, and then it was Kevin Jennings, and then it was Jordan Klepper and John Oliver. And
So all of that, yeah.
those are the things that really shaped my views.
Okay. So, and do you plan on doing anything more politically?
I'm sure I will. The politics that if I do something that's pure politics, the views are really low. So I have to kind of intersperse those, and because the video I just did had low views, I'm going to have to do some Ray Comfort or Ken Ham or something to get the view numbers back up before I can do any politics.
Because being godless granny, people don't expect you to talk about politics.
Right.
And yet I think you could have a very balanced conversation. I wish they would give it a shot because as unpopular as it is, balanced conversations in regards to it need to happen because it's so divided right now.
Yeah. And religion is at the bottom of it. Religion is what is driving Project 2025.
This is where I was going because it's like such a part of this whole platform right now. Now that those 920 pages are out, I did want to ask if you read it. I was going to ask you privately, but we're here.
I haven't read all of it. I have read portions of it, and it's scary. I was so happy when John Oliver did a segment on it because Jenny Morgan's been talking about this for years, and I had looked into it a little bit, based on what Jenny had said, and I didn't really think it had a chance of really taking any political hold in this country until Trump came along, and they're not even being secretive about it. But before they were kind of secretly putting a piece of it here. Now they're not even being secretive about it. But even he has seen that there's portions of it that go too far. One of the scariest things about that plan is they're going to completely dismantle the education department. They plan to get rid of the education department.
Yep.
Have vouchers, so they're going to be funneling all of the federal education dollars into private religious schools. The public schools are going to. They're going to be awful. It's going to be the place where the poor children who can't afford to go to private school go. And we're going to have a far greater divide of rich and poor in this country because the poor in this country are going to be uneducated.
Unfortunately, that's exactly like where it's heading. There's some, tearing a lot of things back, rolling back women's votes to women voting. Trying to roll back many things like, let's bring back 1950 or so,
Roe v. Wade and all of those sorts of things. Like it's so weird observing what's happening over there from a distance. It's surreal, to be honest. It's like, am I in the Twilight Zone or what's going on? Like
it's like they're trying to put it. It's like they're trying to put us into The Handmaid's Tale.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I think you saw this too, Granny. This has been going on for more than 10 years with Heritage Foundation and coming forward. It's just coming to light now. Well, the stepping stones have been put in place like all along. But I did notice that our nominee did actually notice the poll numbers on Project 2025 and went right out and disavowed it. When the poll numbers came out on how Americans who actually are starting to read the document feel.
Because of the climate, the political climate that's happening in America at the moment in particular, I think everybody needs to be talking about it because, I mean, to be honest, look, the idea of someone like Donald Trump getting in power in the most powerful country in the world is frightening. And to
It
look at
is.
his supporters and to see who it is that are his supporters and the influence that they have on society and people around them is quite frankly scary because they are not intelligent people. I'm sorry, it's a world based in complete and utter ignorance.
Yeah.
And it frightens me, and I just hope that doesn't kind of
Yeah.
spread and other countries follow on with that trend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
I think we need
difficult
talk
to
about
have
it.
the conversations. I had one a little bit last night on X of all places. Like, where do these things start, right? And it was about Project 2025, and someone was out there saying, no, Trump doesn't support it. He never had anything to do with it. Like, that's just what you guys are all saying now because you don't want Trump in. I said, here's an article. There are 25 people here from his last cabinet and his last campaign that not only supported, endorsed it, paid for it, but helped write it. Stephen Miller, several people. I said, so I will admit that there's nobody right now that he's standing next to except for, oh, excuse me, J.D. Vance just got nominated for the vice presidency role in his campaign. And you need to look at what he was talking about with Project 25 just a couple of months ago, not like last year, not like the last election. I said, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just giving you additional information to look at. And they were like, oh, what are you, a liberal? I'm not going to listen to you. I'm like, just look at the names. Like, I'm just trying to tell you what you're saying about him not having anything to do with it. This is why people are saying it, because of all of these people in his cabinet and the policies that he already put in place during his last presidency, especially in the education department. Some of us know what Betsy had done in regards to removing some protocols and some restrictions and regulations. So they started dismantling the education system during that presidency. Like, they already started laying the foundation, and they don't want to see it. And I'm not trying to panic him. I was very respectful about it, just like, don't be saying there isn't anybody involved. Here's the list of people. It's not a little list. Like, there's a lot of them. Yeah.
But they're not listening.
Yeah. They don't even want help with their own arguments.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make them not look like a fool.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even want help. Yeah.
And it's just a lack of being able to be rational or reasonable or just listen. It's more about winning an argument. They're not taking anything on board in an intellectual way. Like, just consider what people are trying to say to you, take it on board, and then explore it for yourself, and you'll find out that it's actually correct. It scares me. But look, we've had a really good chat. We have actually gone, because I'm trying to keep it to about an hour, and we've had a really good chat. I feel as though we could get you on again, Granny, sometime in the future, because we still had some things to cover. I had more clips to show, but we don't need to show all that stuff. We can do that again. But look, just quickly before we wind things up, I do have a couple of questions. Look, I'll leave it. I had question 13 there to do with utopian society, but I'm just going to ask you this because it's probably something that, are you associated or involved with any charities or activist groups that you would like to shout out while you're here?
CASA. Now, it's actually CAJA where I live because the acronym CASA had been taken, but the nationwide organization is CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. I've been working with this organization for over 10 years now. And, well, no, I guess not quite. I guess about 8 years now. And it's a wonderful organization of people who investigate on behalf of the court for children who are in care. And it's just one more pair of eyes, one more set of ears listening to the child and looking out for children who sometimes are falling through the cracks.
Awesome. Yep. Very worthy. So, yeah, look, it's good if we can shout out organizations like that are trying to do good in society, and that's something that we will do on the channel as well, and through the Utopians in general, is to get behind causes, maybe be involved in fundraisers or anything that's happening. We'd like to get behind things like that, because it is largely very community-based thing. So but in saying that, we have gone for about an hour and 5 minutes. Mark has more questions here, but I think we might have to leave them, and I think we'll get Gigi on again in the future. We'll ask more questions.
That's all right. Mark can also ask questions in my next stream too.
Mark is
Are you
great.
heading up to do a stream now?
Mhm.
So you've
No,
got
I have one tomorrow.
that's right. Of course, you do.
That was
Sunday.
going to be
This one's going to be really interesting because Dr. Brady Blevins is going to come on, and he says that he can solve the Jerusalem Galilee problem.
really
Mhm.
okay.
So-
That's a good one to watch.
So he's coming from a religious perspective. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very, very interesting. Okay, then. All right. Anything else coming up, Gigi, in the future that you wanted to talk about? You and I are doing a strawman video together, which we're working on. So that's just about the strawman argument. So that should be kind of a funny one, I think. Anything coming up?
No, I have that interview with Dr. Blevins coming up. And let's see. Oh, the following week I'm going to have on recovering from religion. Or actually, no, I take it back. That's about a month away. But
Okay.
they are coming up in the near future, and that should be a lot of
That's
fun.
another
all right.
organization
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that's worth mentioning. Yep. Okay. Aaron Lewis is involved with them as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's really good. Claire,
Yeah.
thank
Oh.
you for jumping on and essentially being guest host, I guess,
Oh,
today.
are you
Go
kidding?
for
I
it.
love talking with Granny. I would come on and like, are you kidding? This is easy. But I already have another 10 questions for next time. So
So do
bring
I.
Granny back.
We
Bring
didn't
Granny
even
back.
get through all of
Yeah.
the questions
We did-
we had,
yeah.
so.
I'm already made some more because I just want to say, Granny, I'm just so pleased to see someone being able to do what they wanted to do out here, an accomplishment without compromising. You do take into consideration the YouTube paradox about what's going to be popular and whatnot, but you still keep it within what you wanted to accomplish out here in regards to correcting misinformation, or you saying how it should be one way and then finding out another, and just being willing to come out there and say, I got it wrong and I want to help you all understand what happened. Like, that was me then, this is me now. And just being your genuine self. It's inspiring. You're on my mentor list.
Well, thank you, Claire.
There needs to be more of it. The authenticity is well respected. And actually, that was a question. It's probably worth asking just quickly. You're going to be at 10,000 pretty soon. I feel as though that's not too far away. What's your plans for the channel? What's your ultimate goal? Do you want to be one of those channels that all of a sudden explodes and reaches 100,000?
No,
Or-
I don't. I listened to what Vice Rhino said that he has to do because of being as big as he is. He has to be so much more concerned about security and people trying to hack his channel and steal his brand. And he has to be much more concerned than I do about legality. If I do something that's going to violate copyright, I'm just going to get. I did get one video that got demonetized, and I was really surprised because it was monetized for 3 days before they decided that it wasn't eligible. And all I did was make a very minor change to the video and cut it by 3 seconds and re-uploaded it, and then it was fine. But when you get that big, people, there's more scrutiny, and you have to be much more careful about copyright and things like that. And
I think you need a team when you get to that stage.
yeah.
People
And
can't put all-
I don't want to have to do that much work.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Okay, that's fair. And sorry, Claire, what have you got coming up?
Oh, the usual same old true crime and then casual talk on Sunday. Like we call that the nothing stream because we never know what we're going to talk about. It usually ends up to be food and
That's a good
my
comment.
obsession with small appliances that gets dissed about all the time, and my co-hosts not having any appliance, not even a lemon reamer. Like, come on, seriously.
My God, everybody should have a lemon reamer.
What's a
Thank you,
lemon
Art.
reamer?
What's a lemon
Oh
reamer?
no, a
What's a
fork.
lemon reamer?
It's a fork to most people, but they actually make like a wooden dowel with grooves in it that you can shove in the lemon, and it gets more juice out of it. They come in glass, metal, wood.
Oh.
And it's like it's like pointy conical and one end with grooves in it. But yeah, she uses a fork, like probably Grady does, to get the juice out of the lemon, but or a lime.
Actually, I just buy a bottle of lemon juice.
Oh, even easier. Okay.
Now we don't need practical thinking around here. Thank you
I
very
don't know.
much.
At least
No
there was
rational
one. At least there was one. Art saved me because I could have gone down in flames with that one. But thanks. Yeah, always food and just fun, you know. And I'm doing true crime, and I did bring back my social media content on Fridays where it's kind of like the most absurd things you could ever think of or something. But this one was good. We did some crazy art. The last Friday we did was crazy art. We did some science when they discovered that mammoth with the DNA that was, going to actually had a live 3D genome. I know, too nerdy, but yeah, it was fun to talk about. And we did some, crazy art like the poop in a can guy from way back when. Well, somebody actually opened that can, and you know what was inside it besides the poop?
A lemon?
Another can. And I thought that was the funniest thing. So I had to put it on the street. I mean, who puts another can in a can of poop?
It's like
it
those
was
Russian
ridiculous.
dolls. You open it and there's a smaller one. And a smaller one and a smaller one.
Exactly like that. But these cans were going for 50,000 lira. Like,
Wow.
a lot of money. Like crazy. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like fun anyway. It sounds like
It's silly. It just, with all the politics going around, and when you do true
you need
crime,
a
and
bit of
there's
light.
yeah,
Yeah. The
they're
true crime gets a
legally
bit heavy.
the true crime genre itself is so split up into the ridiculous and then the reasonable. Like it was too much. I had to do something ridiculous just to like get it out. Just like to fresh myself up to get ready for it. But thanks for asking. Art.
Nice.
Just the same old.
Well,
What do
yeah,
you got going on? What do you have
look,
going on, sir?
really, it's taken me a while to get to the point with the channel where I know where it's heading. So the main thing really now is going to be doing interviews as far as live streams go. Also collaborating with people like Granny and yourself, Claire, people from the community. We've been doing that for a while in making scripted videos, produced videos. So we'll be putting those out. I've also been rehearsing with a band, which is writing music, which is going to be relative to the channel. So I'm going to start to put out live videos and things like that. But as far as the live streams, it will be pretty much all doing interviews. So we've had Granny on today, and we'll more than likely get her on again, I think, because there's more to talk about there. I've got Erin Lewis, who's also another friend of the channel, coming on hopefully in 2 weeks' time. We'll try and do it every 2 weeks. And some of the people that we mentioned actually during this chat, people like Aaron Ra, who I've built up a bit of a relationship with, and people like Matt Dillahunty and those types of people. Shannon Q really interests me because of her psychological knowledge. So we're going to try and get people like that on the show. But we're starting with our friends and celebrities within our midst, like Gigi here, to get the ball rolling. In 2 weeks, it'll be Aaron Lewis, and then from there on, we'll see. But we're aiming it every couple of weeks. But in saying that, thank you, Claire, for basically guest hosting. And
my pleasure.
Gigi, thank you for being our first guest. It was most enjoyable, and I look forward to the next one. Thank you to everyone in the chat. And of course, thanks to Ghana in the background. She's just hiding there. But
Yes. Yay, Ghana. Yay, Ghana. Bananas in Ghana 2024. Yes, bananas for everyone.
Vote me.
Ganna is our art director. She's the one doing all the characters that you see and everything, and she does behind the scenes moderating, as you've noticed.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, thanks Ganna, and thanks everybody. I'm going to play our one little piece of outro music, and then we will finish up, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks when we hopefully speak to Aaron Lewis. I'll keep everyone posted about how that's working out. Okay. Thank you again, and we'll catch you again.
Bye.
Very soon. Okay. Bye,
Bye.
guys. Just watch our tempo from speeding up too. I feel as though we might be speeding up just a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4.